This last week of our course, we'll conclude with a case study and we'll deal one more time with some of the topics you've learned about in these last few weeks. We'll be talking about the divine, not about the multiple gods of ancient Egypt, ancient Mesopotamia or Hinduism, nor those of Japanese Shintoism, but about the one God of the monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. We'll also encounter the Virgin Mary. And indirectly, we will also come across demons and spirits, because the phenomenon of exorcism will again be mentioned a few times. Magic is not on the agenda this week, but the supernatural will be a key issue in this week's videos. It is going to be all about a sensational miracle, about the belief in that miracle, about what it means for the community that believes in it, and how we can look at all this from a scholarly point of view. We will not talk about dreams as such, but we will mention a vision, something different, to be sure, but definitely not unrelated to the kind of meaningful dreams you learned about earlier in this course. We'll also talk about a kind of belief that you have not heard about that much in the previous weeks. And this is religious identity, or the belief in belonging to a specific religious community, and the belief that the religion practiced by the group is better than that of others. And all this in the context of a multi-confessional society, in which one particular group feels the need to assert itself and to claim what it considers to be its rightful place in that society. In this particular case study, that group is a Christian community in a society under a Muslim rule. So let's get going. This last leg of our journey takes us back to Cairo, the capital of Egypt and the largest metropolitan area in the Middle East, with as many as 18 million inhabitants if we include all the suburbs. Most of its people are Sunni Muslims, and the city boasts a large number of famous mosques and other Islamic monuments built in various periods since the 7th century. Here, next to the modern An-Nur Mosque, with its very tall minarets, stands another big 20th century building that reminds us that not all Egyptians are Muslims. The great Cathedral of St. Mark is the seat of the Patriarch, also called Pope, of the Coptic Orthodox Church. The Copts also boast many ancient churches and monasteries, including some in Cairo. But today, our exploration starts at a modern site, built from the 1990s onwards. This is a huge complex of churches, built inside the cliffs of the Muqattam, a mountain that rises up on the eastern side of Cairo. Do you still remember Father Samaran, whom we met earlier on? The famous Coptic priest who performs public exorcism. Well, he is the visionary who built this complex of worship in which thousands of Copts regularly congregate. The Cairo neighborhood where this religious compound is located is a poor area, a slum, where many people earn their livelihood collecting and recycling the garbage of the enormous metropolitan area of Greater Cairo. Everyone in Cairo knows these people as the Zabbalin, the garbage men. And the point is, practically all of these Zabbalin belong to the Coptic community. By the way, their neighborhood recently received international media exposure because of the giant graffiti calligraphy painted over a large number of its buildings by the French-Tunisian artist El Cid. Today, the area is still poor, but much more developed than, say, 50 years ago. Much of this evolution is the result of development aid projects mostly financed by foreign agencies and carried out by religious organizations with both Egyptians and foreign members. Some of these are European and Catholic, like the famous Belgian nun Sister Emmanuel, while others have a North American and evangelical background.
Now the point is, because of all this, contacts between Egyptian Copts and foreign Christians are far from limited to such material and infrastructural development. In fact, these contacts have transformed the very nature of the way Coptic Christianity expresses itself. While keeping its ancient traditions very much alive, it has at the same time seen a renewal that is quite remarkable. For example, the Coptic Orthodox community nowadays has its own rally pop music, just like other Christian communities worldwide. But the central personality in this whole revival, in this whole new style of celebrating religion, is Father Sam'an. This priest is very well known among the Copts, but at the same time he is criticized by many members of the clergy of the Coptic Orthodox Church. Why? Gaëtan Duroy has done extensive PhD research on the modern history of the Muqattam site, and he's going to tell you more about it.
Well, Father Sam'an is so controversial because he has promoted a very simple theology which incites Christians to encounter Jesus Christ at a very personal level. Moreover, to be saved, people have to constantly repent their sins. This is his teaching. What's more, for his many followers, Father Sam'an is a man who is exceedingly close to God, who is endowed with incredible spirituality and especially with the gift of exorcism, which we mentioned earlier. But there is a problem here. A part of the Coptic community disapproves of Father Sam'an's style in doing these things. Some people think he neglects some very important Coptic traditions and that his style is too exuberant, not sober enough. So how is it possible that a priest blamed for moving away from tradition was able to build such huge churches and to organize massive prayer meetings there? The answer is that Father Sam'an has skillfully used an old tradition to legitimize his authority. In fact, one of our main aims this week will be to show you how ancient narratives can also be used as powerful resources in our own times. To help us to understand such references to old traditions in modern times, our methodology is inspired by the work of famous historian Eric Hobsbawm. It is true that Hobsbawm's case studies are mostly based on European history, not on that of the Middle East. But his model of analysis can be applied to many different regions and periods. It is about traditions such as state rituals or religious processions and the like. It is well known that such practices can help shape a community. Community members tend to believe that their tradition is very old and needs to be preserved to keep the community together. Now, Hobsbawm's most important observation is that such traditions are not always as old as people think. In various cases, they were simply invented at some point in time. And scrupulous historical research can determine that point quite precisely. In other cases, traditions can be based on narratives that actually are very old. But such narratives may talk about significant events that are completely fictitious. Other traditions can be based on events that actually happened, for which there is hard historical evidence. But from the point of view of the history of ideas, this distinction does not really matter. For the members of the community in question, such a narrative is true. It is meaningful, it conveys an important message, and it is part of their common identity. Another point is that such meaningful stories or traditions can be reinvented or reinterpreted over time. And once again, research in the field of history of ideas can help us to map such processes, not by trying to find out whether these traditions are true or authentic, but rather by trying to find out what these stories actually tell us about the people who believe in them.
And by the way, we are talking interdisciplinarity here, because an additional tool for such research is textual criticism, with the kind of methodology we explained briefly in the introduction to this course. So, how does all this relate to Father Samaran and the fact that he made such skillful use of an old tradition? The answer lies in that old tradition itself. What we are talking about here is a very old story about the Muqattam, the place where Father Samaran's compound is located. This story reaches back to the 10th century, so it is over 1,000 years old, and it has been handed down over the centuries in manuscripts and by oral transmission. It tells us about a truly amazing event, which the Copts regard as one of the greatest miracles ever. According to this miracle, the Muqattam mountain was made to move up and down in a terrifying display of divine power, and in answer to the prayers of the Coptic community in a time of great anxiety and distress. Can you believe it?